Today on Nobody Knows Anything, we are back in studio with none other than Jen Psaki, who debases herself by joining us. We are talking about Marco Rubio's podium appearance. What does Jen Psaki actually think about it? We're talking about Kamala Harris calling for a DNC autopsy to be released. And also, would Jen Psaki rather hang out with drunk Kash Patel or sober Pete Hegseth? And then we'll talk about the war in Iran that is still going on and still not going well. The Trump 180 on AI and his kind of good night in Indiana. All that and more today on Nobody Knows Anything.
Nobody knows anything.
Jesse, it is so good to see you.
We are back, buddy. How was San Francisco? Did you wash all that AI off you?
I am just covered in compute. Like absolutely a wash. No, San Francisco, I mean, I said it last couple episodes, one of the great cities in this country. I mean, it is just so fabulous. The weather is great. I would build an evil villain lair for my ketamine-induced polycule out there, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You can see where they're coming from. Well, it's great to have you back in the old district. We were in studio. We have the internet. Things are looking up.
So, what's funny is the bit about our internet not working, people have come up to us being like, oh, the bit that you do about, you don't have internet. It's so funny, you guys. No, we really did. Like, the internet here was not good in our dungeon.
It's more of a megabit than a
really
bit, if you will.
Yeah, it was a megabit. But we have great internet now thanks to the people at New Connect who have not sponsored this show, but really kind of have.
But fuck Verizon.
Exactly. But fuck Verizon. And really excited to be back. We have a great show.
We've got Jen Psaki coming in.
Unbelievable. This is one of those where it's not that we're like Nepo people, but this is like, we're punching above weight.
She knows us from the good old days.
The good old days, back when we had jobs.
Back when we had jobs
real
and
jobs.
Respect.
So without any further ado, we're going to bring in
Special guest,
Jen Psaki.
Okay, we actually have a special guest.
I'm so studio. Very dramatic. Where are they?
Yeah, where exactly? Jen Psaki joins us, debasing herself by being here on Nobody Knows Anything.
I am delighted to be here. I've known you both a long time, and I'm so excited you're doing this.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was saying to Rob, it's like we're following in your footsteps, but if you were way less successful at both parts of your career, like mid-level political operative to podcaster for nobody.
Not in any way true. Not in any way true.
Jen, of course, is the host of MS Now's The Briefing with Jen Psaki, former White House press secretary in the Biden administration.
I like the emphasis on
here
now.
for a
That
favor.
was really good.
MS Now. Okay, everyone gave MS Now a lot of shit for the branding, but I actually think it makes tons of sense.
Yeah,
it's because it's like MSNBC. You want to keep the N.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then, I get
And
it.
everyone can still call it
It's
MS.
and then there was a word I was worried too. It's like, do the people who watch us every night, are they going to find it? And it's like, turns out
They found it. They found it.
My parents listened to it on Sirius XM. My dad I remember the first time I got in the car 10 years ago and I was like, are you just streaming Chris Matthews? And he was like, oh yeah, I'm always listening to. I was like,
they're
wow.
like, wherever Lawrence O'Donnell is, I will be.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anyhow,
exactly.
continue.
Well, we are going to talk about 2028, the happenings around the field. Earlier this week, a story from NBC about the frontrunners to lead Bernie Sanders' grassroots movement in 2028. The answer is there's kind of no one. It's an interesting space.
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting story. I think AOC is obviously thought of as the odds-on favorite to inherit that movement if there is an inheritor to that movement. And, I think still unclear if she's going to run or not. But, some interesting reporting from Natasha Korecki suggesting people are interested in Ro Khanna. There were some other names floated, J.B. Pritzker, John Ossoff. Can one of those guys pull some of the progressive movement? But I think it's this big question hanging over 2028 is there a Bernie lane and is AOC or someone else going to just kind of inherit that movement, or is that not really how the dividing lines work anymore?
I mean, the thing that I found, it is an interesting question. The thing that I found a little strange about the story was it kind of was framed as if there's some secret room where people are like, you will be the progressive, you will take the reins of the progressive mantle and you have it, right?
Right.
And the reality is, I mean, first of all, there's some super talents that Natasha mentioned in that story. I mean, AOC is a super unicorn, a political talent,
Totally.
right? Whether she's going to run for Senate, whether she's going to run for president or not. I mean, who knows?
Right.
But that's unquestionable. There's a lot of other interesting people in there, but it's I don't even know that all of them want to be I'm the progressive candidate in the presidential race. or that there's somebody who deems that. And you know who doesn't deem that? A lot of the groups who were quoted in stories.
Yeah.
It's actually
totally.
just the thing that's so ludicrous. It's like actually, and you know, some of the people quoted are actually working for some of those people, so that's fair.
Yeah.
It's actually like, who is getting 2,000 people on a college campus a year from now? You know what? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure AOC would, or other people. Who is like fundraising online like a maniac, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Who is, I mean, those are the questions, and I think it's like unanswerable at this point in time
Yeah.
because we just have to see what happens.
Yeah, but I mean, to that point, like AOC, she's one of the only Dems that is sort of in the 2028 conversation that seems to have like star power right now. You know, like she was, you know, doing the Fighting Oligarchy tour with Bernie Sanders, and they did have, you know, 40,000 people in like Missoula, Montana. I was like, this is a thing. But it does feel like she is like, if she wants to run for president, she starts with more of that, like the huge grassroots fundraising base and just like a fan base that, like, I think Ro Khanna has impressed a lot of people over the last year. You know, the Epstein file stuff has been incredible. But like, I don't know anyone else in the Democratic Party right now that's like, other than Kamala Harris or, you know, AOC, that's selling out stadiums, you know?
That's true. But, you know, there are some people, and I'm not saying they're going to run for president, like Maxwell Frost. I don't know. I think he considers himself a progressive. I think he's super talented. Greg Kazar, super talented. Are they running for president? Probably not. But I also don't even know if AOC runs for president. She's got to be more than the progressive lane, I think. And I'm not sure. I'm sure she will. She's going to embrace her roots and be authentic to that if she runs. But none of these people are going to be like, I'm the heir to Bernie Sanders. That's a huge movement, but you need more than that even to win the primary.
Yeah, and one of the things, you know, I've been writing this newsletter as well, and one of the things I was writing this week is like a couple points. Like one is Bernie's coalition is kind of unique to Bernie. Like, yes, there's the left thing, but there's also like, he's been saying the same thing, standing for his principles for 40 years.
Yes.
And like, he has a lot of appeal. I mean, you saw a lot of like Bernie Trump voters. Like there are a lot of people who are just done with politics who like love him, even if they're not super leftist. So I think that's a unique dynamic to it. The other thing I think is interesting is like to the, you know, the question of will there be someone who's like the left candidate? And like the left, I think maybe a little bit of a victim of its own success, which is that like the party has moved to meet them on so many of these issues.
It may be like where the party is on a lot of things. That's what I kind of mean. And the coalition thing is a good point. It's like AOC, if she ran, her coalition is going to be more than a sliver of the left, right? In all likelihood. And, you know, John Ossoff, who's in that list too, it's like he certainly is progressive on a lot of things, not on other things. Like, but he would have a different coalition, right? So it's all about the coalition of people. And to your point, the party has moved left over the last 20 plus years.
I don't know if you heard about this autopsy thing. So it's sort of a mild.
Who a political nerd has not heard of that?
Yeah. Kamala Harris this morning saying she wants the DNC to release the autopsy of her 2024 campaign. I think it's interesting that, you know, she feels like she has to do this. There's advantage in doing this given, you know, how upset a lot of voters are on this.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
It's like voters, maybe voters are upset.
Not voters.
They might be.
Insiders.
But yeah, like it's like donors are upset.
I'm a voter.
State party chairs are upset. What I don't understand, there's a lot to say about this. I'm sure we have a lot of thoughts. We have all been on a crunch of getting things done. The election was 18 months ago. Why are we having this conversation right now? Like, this is not the time to have this conversation. Why couldn't they have done a 3-month or 4-month surge and put it out a year ago?
Yep.
That's one question I have. And I hope moving forward, that's what they do when Democrats lose. But yeah, I mean, the thing is it's like there have been a lot of wins. I mean, 30, now 31, I think, special elections. I think it's 31 now after Michigan the other night. Democrats are winning. The energy is out there. A lot of things are happening. They have not won yet back a legislative branch of power. They have not yet won back the White House. So there's still lessons to learn. Absolutely, there's lessons to learn. And you know what will happen if they should release it, and if they were to release it, people will be pissed off. There'll be inter-party fighting. It will be like, I told you this on Gaza. I told you this on working people. I told you this. That will happen. But then you know what? It's all out in the air. And strategists and state party chairs can feel like they have the information that's maybe usable. Who knows? Maybe it's not. Maybe it is for some states and not. And donors will feel like they understand what happened in 2024, and they can look and see if things have changed. So to me, it's like, yeah, you got a week or two of bad press, infighting. Why the fuck are we doing this now? I think I can say fuck on this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. We don't.
Why the fuck are we having this conversation now? That is like insane. But yeah, it's like nothing has been won in terms of a big heaping win yet, as much as Democrats are winning.
Yep.
Yeah. As a comms professional, like dragging this out for
that's kind of what you want to
maximize.
You want to maximize the pain.
Right. It's like release one chapter at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we could do a dramatic reading where
like where is it? When was it done? Do we even know when it was done? Like,
maybe it wasn't done.
It seems like maybe it was not done.
Yeah.
Someone told me over the weekend that they lost the hard drive. That is totally like speculative, but not even. It's like quasi speculative, but or feels implausible, but just crazy.
Replicate it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's total. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like out of a.
It's like
a sitcom.
it's that.
It's out of Veep.
It's that
100%.
exactly. It's like it's the autopsy and Ken Martin's crypto wallet are like both on there, and he's like, I gotta get it back.
I swear I raised $100 million. I don't know where it
people
went.
worked on it, gather up their files again, and put it back together.
Yeah.
Right. And to your point, like, yes, it's 1 week. There's going to be infighting. And like, this is playing out in these primaries too. And there are people on the Twitters being like, we can't have all this infighting. I'm like, this is exactly what we need to be doing. Like the party needs to decide what it is about. Like whatever you think went wrong in 2024, we clearly like got our clocks cleaned by Donald Trump after January 6th and everything that happened. Like we need to learn some lessons. And like, this is what politics is about. It's the art of persuasion. It's debate. And it's like, it's okay to not all agree on exactly what our policies should be.
If they ever release this, I'll say, won't be relevant.
Yeah.
Totally.
Joe Biden is not currently president, right?
Yeah.
So whatever factor that was, he's not currently president.
We fixed that one. We got
exactly. Way to go,
Democrats
Rob.
solved that problem nice and good.
It's like, there are things that are like, we're not in the, there is, Israel and that whole issue the party has massively shifted. That's already happening.
Right.
Look at what's happened in Congress. Look
Right.
at who is now voting against funding for Israel. Now there's a war with Iran they started. Like that is already shifting.
Yeah.
So my point is, it still would still be capturing a moment in time, which the world may have moved on from, but people are smart enough to evaluate that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and there's the tactical stuff too. I mean, Rob, you talked to them a little about, digital and all that. Like there are lessons to learn beyond like the moment, of like, yes, as you're saying,
What did we learn about the TikTok?
What did we learn about it?
Tell us all the lessons.
It's what you have to do is go viral, and I think that's the.
I'm still always like, remember the ice bucket challenge?
Yeah.
Can we do that again?
Oh my God! Well, that's the amount of times when you're in my chair where someone's like, "What if we do the ice bucket challenge but for immigration policy?" And you're like, "What? I want to go home."
Like that doesn't work.
That's not how it works.
Also, nobody wants to see you dancing.
Yeah, literally,
Correct.
literally. What do you make of Ken Martin in this moment? Tough hand, but maybe not up for the job. Where do you fall on that?
Extremely shitty hand in a lot of ways, and also one where nobody was really ever going to be happy. And he is not just like I've spent time with him, a fair amount of time with him. He's like a nice guy. He's a guy who came from the state party system, who's actually won stuff, right?
Totally.
He's not some like Washington inside person, clearly.
Yeah.
What I think is challenging is navigating DC, which is part of the job, is a bear. And if you haven't grown up in this town, it is a bigger bear, right?
Yep.
Which I think he's struggling with. Fundraising, he's raised a lot of money, but like also candidates have raised crazy amounts of money. It's like, and the RNC still has more money. So it's like, that is a little bit like your whole job in that job. And I feel like people never understand what the job is.
Totally.
Is to raise money and attack the other party and the person in charge. And it's like, sometimes people don't understand that. Like, I think Jamie Harrison thought he was going to like be the deputy president and have a seat at the table making policy. And like, maybe somebody told him that. It's like, that's not the job. The job is to raise money and to attack the other party.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know if that's his superpowers.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's right. Amazing moment we wanted to highlight with one of our just peers in terms of audience and influence, Tim Miller, with John Ossoff.
You're just earlier stage.
Exactly.
We're early stage.
I'm early stage. Tim.
We're early stage.
We're still the Republican version of Tim.
Yeah. This interview moment with John Ossoff was very interesting.
There was a post recently about how all the Democrats are cussing now. And it's like very in trend. Are you not a big cusser?
Well, it's not really my thing.
Not your thing. Do you have a favorite cuss word or?
I'm afraid that's just one of those private questions. I'm pretty
favorite because a private question
about me.
I love
it. I want to pull this in because we've been very complimentary of John Ossoff on this show. I pulled up the receipts of when I bought John 2024 back in 2022, just like calling my friend saying, hey, you should get your boss to run. Like he's been an incredible messenger, especially on corruption, I think, you know, and you see he gives these big
speeches
rally
have been
speeches that are just
great.
bringing the house down. But like there is still that people forget then about all the other parts that are going to be involved. And I actually don't know that John will end up running. I think he wants to serve Georgia and is worried about losing that seat to a Republican. And he's like our age, basically, and much more accomplished. But I think, can he do some of the like, you know, there was all this moment after 2024. It's like, everyone's got to be able to do Rogan. And like, I don't think that's the end all be all. But like, I do think you're going to be able to be a little bit of a normal person. And I recoiled a little bit.
My God,
It's just a private
it feels
question.
it feels it had the tone and tenor of one of those AI job interviews, you know, where they're like,
Yes. Thank you for joining us today, Rob.
that's a thoughtful question, you know.
Here's the thing I kind of wonder, and I've interviewed him a bunch of times, and you're right, his speeches have been some of the best that have been delivered, and the way he talks about corruption is more cutting and to the point than almost anyone. Is like maybe that's who he actually is. It's you know, he's married to an OBGYN. He's been successful since he was like very early 20s. Maybe he doesn't curse.
I think that's
like,
probably
have no
true.
Idea.
No, yeah, I
But,
think that's
do
right.
you need to curse?
No.
I don't know that you need to. What that reminded me of different, but it's like, how would James Tallarico, who's a very excellent communicator, have answered that question? And I'm not sure he would have given a curse word either. Like he probably would have answered it a little bit more smoothly.
Yeah, I just think he would have been a little less stilted. But I agree that this is who Ossoff is. And like, I know that he writes all of his own speeches. Like, I mean, I'm sure he has very smart people helping, but like part of why he's such a good messenger on the corruption stuff is like, I think he's genuinely offended to his core. And this is like not what America's supposed to be. So I'm all for people like being who they are, but maybe you got to roll up the sleeves a little bit, show those great arms everyone wants to see.
It's interesting because it's like there are some people, and people, goes to the question more of like what people are hungry for too, right? It's like, you know, Pat Ryan, the congressman who's running for president. I don't know that I'm tracking.
He
but
could.
like, he's great, but like he was on my show a couple weeks ago and he said something like, it's a crock of bullshit or something. Right?
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, it is a crock of bullshit.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like, you know, I think Ossoff has the ability to cut through and speak like a human, but yeah, you got it. It's just like hard to know when it's like,
Got to do some like speed dating or something. You
like
know?
just, you know,
I mean,
just like look in the mirror and say shit.
Yeah.
20
yeah,
times
exactly.
or something if that's needed.
Anyway, and then Rahm Emanuel hitting the rail trail, riding his bike across beautiful New Hampshire.
On June 5th, starting in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, I'll be riding all the way to Hanover. The Spin-Free Tour.
Okay, first of all, I did that. That's not that far. I mean, New Hampshire is
110 miles, he says. 110 miles, he says.
That's real. But anyway,
Portsmouth route, as I've done on 3 different trips here in the United States. I love biking, and I did as ambassador 4 different times in Japan, and I've done also with my daughter and my wife in Europe. I look forward to hearing from you, seeing you along the route, enjoying different diners, different bed and breakfasts, but also most importantly, listening, hearing, and seeing the beautiful state of New Hampshire.
I love it. So just a guy who happens to
I
coincidentally
just love biking in New Hampshire this
biking
time of
through
year.
New Hampshire. You know, that's just a thing that people do.
I just wanted to get you going on Rahm because I know you worked closely with him at various points of your career.
What I appreciated about the bike tour is he goes full bike outfit. It's not that he's biking in jeans and a barn jacket across New Hampshire. For anybody who hasn't watched, he's in full lycra, as far as I can tell, which is very Rahm. I mean, I did 2 tours of duty, as I like to call it, for the guy. I love him. He is what I love about him, and I actually think is part of his appeal. And we'll see if he runs. I mean, all of this stuff is like, you don't do this unless you're thinking.
Right.
About
Yeah.
Whether or not you actually run is a different question because all of these people, as we all know, what's happening right now is they're having meetings with people they trust, dinners, and they're like, what's my path? Could I win? Would I embarrass myself? If I don't win, what else could I get? Can I raise the money? Is there staff? Like I'm sure Rahm is having conversations like that. They all are.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
There's nothing wrong with that. Rahm, I think his appeal is that he has like literally no filter. Like no filter whatsoever. I think he has to control himself from not saying fuck. That's like
He's got the opposite problem.
Opposite of the
This is the same way I've said the same thing. The rest of them are trying to swear. These guys are like, I can't make it through a fucking interview without dropping the F-bomb.
And he is somebody who does not care about bureaucracy. He does not care about titles. And what is appealing about this, when I worked for him, when I was the deputy press secretary in the White House, he didn't care. He would just like come straight to my desk and be like, do this thing. He doesn't care about the process. He doesn't care about the order things are supposed to go through. He is like a get shit done person.
Totally.
And that's how he is. He also has an insane gut instinct about politics. And I don't know. I haven't worked for him in a long time. I don't see politics have changed. So I don't know if it's still applicable, right? But in 2006, and certainly when I worked for him again in the White House, it was like he had a gut from his core about like how to get bills passed, how to get people elected. And maybe that still is going to serve him. But he's got a whole record as mayor. You probably have thoughts on that. The feelings people have on that. That's not something you can run away from. But he's interesting. He'd be interesting in the conversation. He's super smart too. So I don't know.
Yeah, and he's mixing things up. I mean, like, so the Chicago thing, it's funny because it has aged well, partly because Lori Lightfoot and Brandon Johnson have struggled to maintain popularity, I would say, to be charitable about it. But, in retrospect, some of the polling is like, Rahm did a pretty good job. Like, that doesn't mean that the Laquan McDonald stuff won't come up in a Democratic primary. But
it's part of what you discuss
totally,
right now, right? What are your weaknesses and vulnerabilities?
Right. But the other thing that's interesting about him is that he's like, I think there has been understandably on the liberal Twitter world, people like, why are all these outlets giving him so much press? Like he's a has-been or whatever. But like he's doing interesting things already.
Yeah.
He's pushing the field. He's like, I could not believe that no younger Democrat came out for this way before him. But like he was the first one to say like we should have age limits for Congress and the president. And like those are things that are like gonna mix up the conversation.
Thing.
Totally.
It's like very specific things that people can bite into and digest. And he just has a gut for that.
Yeah, and you mentioned 06. You were at the D trip when he was the chair, and I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like he did a lot of recruiting of like non-traditional Dems and people and took some blowback. But he clearly had like a spidey sense about where everything was going. And
huge part of what he did, and he was relentless. First of all, the first time I met him was my first day at the DCCC, or maybe my second day. And I walked into his office, and I was like, it's just so wrong. And what's so funny about it is that I ended up traveling with him like all around the country because I desked a lot of the races that were the key races, and I met my husband that cycle, who was his traveling aide.
Oh my God.
At the time. So Rahm takes credit for us getting married. So, and then I worked with him again. And I'm like, I saw you a fucking lot.
Yeah.
Like,
Turns
I saw
out.
you so many times.
Motherfucker.
You're right.
hilarious.
And he would call, and this is the thing about his instinct about politics. Like, I remember he probably called Heath Schuler. Like,
Yeah.
I remember him, like, former football player who was in North Carolina 1,000 times. Brad Ellsworth. Like, and he'd be like, listen, Brad, I need you to get in this race. You're the only guy. Okay, I love you. I'll call you tomorrow. Like it was like
Incredible.
He would call and be like, why the fuck is this thing not in the paper? And then he'd be like, okay, bye. Love you. Makes sense.
he is indefatigable.
It's unbelievable. All right, well, everybody's running for president. Turns out.
How fun.
I mean, guess who? I like to AI some graphics here. But I was just wondering, like, are there other? You mentioned, I don't even know if Max Frost is old enough to be president. But you mentioned, I think Kassar is like, again, I don't think these people are running. But I'm just curious, like, do you have any deep sleepers who you think are like, maybe not even from the whoever? I know you've talked to a lot of.
I feel like that's a big list of people, and I don't think of who's missing.
Well, the odds on the predictive markets are sort of funny because it's Gavin, Kamala, AOC, Ossoff in number 4, Rahm at 5, which is crazy.
Excuse me.
Who'd have thought?
I mean, those predictive markets.
They're in the most accurate. In the truth market.
Yeah,
The beacon of truth.
I mean, here's the thing, and we all know this, but it's like, it is really hard to become president. It's extremely hard. And so people on paper, or just like, oh, they're great on the TikTok.
Right.
I'm joking because it's Rob. They're so edgy. It's like, well, okay, that's great, but like, can they answer questions about a healthcare plan and also sound authentic and also speak to a big crowd? Like, it is extremely hard. It's like a colonoscopy what these people are going to go through. They don't fully know that yet. And that's why the whole conversation about, like, should there have been, one of the reasons, a different process in 2024 is so ludicrous. Because it's like the notion that these people on paper would have just sailed to election against Donald Trump. The process is the point. And that's who knows? May there be 35 people.
Yeah.
Who knows?
We have a thought about maybe one other person,
There
one
you are
other
getting
sleeper.
Can you confirm you're not running?
Yeah, do you want to confirm that you are not
breaking
among...
news.
Not for dog catchers.
Yeah.
You're the only Democrat not
I
considering
mean,
it.
AI is crazy.
It's so
though.
good.
I like the
You look
dress.
great.
It's
Yeah.
so
pretty
pretty.
nuts.
I literally
dude.
just was like,
Who is that
show me.
behind me?
I have no idea.
My
I
adult
literally,
son?
It seems like...
I literally just said, show me Jen Psaki getting sworn in as president.
In, okay?
know,
In, guys.
it's
I'm
super
not
good.
in, actually. I'm
You're not. Oh, yeah, we got an announcement on the show. All right, we are running close to time, but you may have heard Marco Rubio filled in your old job.
I did.
And-
I didn't watch the whole thing. He was out there for a long time.
He was out there for a
He
while.
was loving it.
He was loving it. He was like
was
made for
hamming
this.
it up. I mean-
Made for this job. We'll watch a little highlight reel.
Go ahead.
Welcome to the White House.
I have two questions on two separate issues that
Do
come
they
under.
get two questions for these?
Two questions.
There's a lot of people in here.
I just fall under your umbrella. The
All right.
first one-
Well, you answer. You can ask me two questions. I'll give you one answer. Go
Thank you
ahead.
very much.
And I'll pick the one I like better.
Thank-
Are you guys all the TV people?
No.
All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go. I'm learning. They gave me a little map. I don't know where I put it of the people here. Some of you had like red X's. I'm kidding. No, it's not true. Go ahead.
I gotta ask you, what is your hope for America at a time such as this?
I mean, my hope for America is what it's always been. I think it's the hope I hope we all share. We want it to continue to be the place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where you're not limited by the circumstances of your birth, by the color of your skin, by your ethnicity, but frankly, it's a place where you are able to overcome challenges and achieve your full potential. I think that should be the goal of every country in the world, frankly. But I think in the U.S., we're not perfect. Our history is not one of perfection, but it's still better than anybody else's history. And ours is a story of perpetual improvement. Each generation has left the next generation of Americans freer, more prosperous, safer. And that is our goal as well.
Como dice en la página del Departamento de Estado.
La política de Estados Unidos en ese tema no ha cambiado y cuando cambie te dejaremos saber. The politics of the United States on that, the policy of the United States on that topic hasn't changed. When it does, obviously we'll inform you, but I don't have any news for you on that today. All right, this has to be the last part.
Many people want to know, what is your DJ name?
My DJ name?
Your DJ name.
You're not ready for my DJ name.
Okay, you've been up at that podium. What'd you
First of
think?
all,
How'd he
also
do?
Quoted a lot of rap lyrics.
He
Yes,
did.
that was not his best part.
Again, authentic and authentic. That's for everyone else to debate. First of all, the bar is very low in this administration, but I think comparatively, he came across as like far warmer, far more like he wasn't yelling at the press, "You're the enemy of the state." Now, he did spoon out a lot of gaslighting non-facts about Iran, and maybe the people in the room were so shell-shocked that he wasn't yelling at them that like they didn't challenge it that much. But and who knows what's true or not true about Iran. But it was like interesting because he clearly had a good time. Now the thing about Rubio is like, are you tracking the administration you're working in?
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
Because that job, even if you're the Secretary of State or the National Security Advisor or head of USAID or the press secretary, all of which are the jobs he currently has, you're speaking on behalf of the president and the White House and the government you work in. And he was almost like an AI version of a Republican president who was appearing in a movie.
Totally.
It's like,
wait a minute, dude. Yeah, literally.
like that was almost like, yeah, we're gonna disagree with a lot, but like I don't find you like I'm not scared of you really, like yelling at me or like I don't know, like or you being around my children because you're so crazy. Like I don't it's like it was a different
It felt like he was up there, like kind of doing like a tight five,
And they were
he's like,
loving it.
I'm trying to take all your broadcast licenses
And
away.
it is a thing. I mean, 2 points. One is like this is a role that he has played, and people are. I mean, he did it in Munich, where like J.D. Vance came and like lit the place on fire last year, and everyone was like, "What the fuck has happened to America?"
And then so freaking awkward.
Yeah.
Right.
Comparatively,
Right,
like,
and then
that
Marco
guy
came
seems
and gave like
normal.
a very like smiley version of the same speech, and they were like, "This guy's the best." They're just so happy not to be getting like screamed at, and the press seems like the same thing.
Sure, you're saying that the Iran war is over and we won.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes,
What's
thank
your
you,
DJ
sir.
name?
Yeah,
Right.
What's
Yeah,
your DJ
exactly.
name? Who cares anymore
What's
about
your
the war?
What's
or
your
the
favorite
gas
thing about your
prices?
kids?
Do
Like,
you ever see that? Do you see the question sometimes that the press corps asks them?
Oh
and,
my God.
And you're like, are you kidding me?
Well, first of all, there are some excellent journalists still in that room.
Totally.
They've also reshaped the room so that more seats and all of the side goes to essentially state-run MAGA media, like the My Pillow lady who asked a question yesterday at this AS conference, and even people in the room laughed. They are getting like half of the questions in a briefing. So even if you're like a super political nerd and you're watching the briefing or reading the transcript, you're like, wow, yeah, like because their questions are like, how is Donald Trump managing? He's looking very svelte.
Yeah.
He's
Mr. Trump
also
is so beautiful.
winning around America.
Yeah.
How is he doing it? So you're like, what you can't see, what people can't see is how they have essentially like cut out a lot of the actual journalists from getting questions in that briefing room and replaced them with like robots of sorts that they program and probably give questions to.
Do you miss Peter Doocy? Like, be honest.
I mean, look.
Now that you're a journalist,
Peter Doocy has actually asked some really good questions on a Rahm lately.
He really has.
He's actually, and not even. I don't think he's even trying to like grill him.
No.
He asks him like smart, good questions, and Trump like has no answer. So it's like we've played a lot of Peter Doocy on my show. I'm like,
yeah, I mean, but to your point, the other thing that I was gonna say is it's an impossible person to be a spokesperson for. And so like some of this stuff, he sounded great. He's out here like spinning Operation Freedom. And then like 5 seconds later, it's like, Trump's like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
Well, or his answer you just played, you're like, that sounds good. That is not what the guy you work for
is saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Or is not how he's operating his government. Or little Gollum, known as Stephen Miller, down the street that you work with. Like, it's like, this is not what you're doing in this government.
Right.
But coming off of this press conference, it was well received. Now he's the odds-on favorite, according to the talking about markets being ridiculous.
Well,
this is ridiculous.
Think about what the bar is here, guys, currently, and maybe it will change.
True.
J.D. Vance, did you see his speech in Iowa?
Yeah.
He lost his place in the speech and couldn't quite, and like that is, you're not giving a 12-point policy speech.
Yeah.
Right.
You're just like talking to a crowd of workers at a campaign event, and he just like couldn't like get himself back.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, that's the other guy, Don Jr., who's made approximately $100 zillion off of this administration.
Yep.
That's not going to sit well. Like, who else is there currently?
Yep.
Yeah, I almost feel bad for JD. Even like the New York Times write-up of his trip to Iowa was like, a lot of people were talking about Marco Rubio.
Everyone likes Rubio.
It's tough, buddy.
And Rubio today in the Vatican, meeting with the Pope, being like, hey, sorry about all of that. Hey, speaking of administration, not reflecting.
But again, like poor JD is coming out with a book about his conversion to Catholicism. And Marco gets the nod to go to the Vatican.
Cucked. I just thought this photo was so funny because it just reminded me of like, the guy in the little chair. You know what I mean?
That's a
He's
classic
like a little
Rubio.
small fry.
He's just like the same. He's in his little
Like
chair.
with his giant Florsheim's that Trump bought him. Like think about how good his presser would be if he was not like so blistered from all those massive shoes.
All right, before you go, Jen, a couple of hot seat questions.
Oh, let's do it.
Okay.
Oh, the whole intro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we are graphics department.
Hot seat.
Is on fire. On fire.
Literally.
Yeah. Okay, rapid fire questions. Jesse, you start.
Okay. Would you rather spend an evening drinking cash-branded bourbon with Kash Patel at his girlfriend's concert, or spend 2 hours talking to Pete Hegseth stone cold sober?
Kash Patel.
No hesitation.
Do Democrats win the Senate?
Yes, I think.
I love
wouldn't
that.
I wouldn't have said that 6 weeks ago.
I love that.
Neither would I.
Okay, what's one Trump policy you kind of agree with?
I'm sure there are.
Mine's the ballroom.
You want the ballroom so
we
bad.
need a functional space.
You're like, only $1 billion.
Give me some, like, I need a give me some options.
I'm like getting rid of the penny is a good one. I'm a big plastic straw enthusiast. So
I have no problem with the penny. I don't think the plastic straws are going to be the hill I die on either.
Yeah. Hardest thing about transitioning to media?
Teleprompter.
Oh, we got to get one of those. Okay, other than this one, which podcast do you most regret doing?
I don't regret this one. God.
We made it.
I don't know if I have any regrets. I will say the one where I recently, and I've done so many podcasts and I've said so many things out loud, and almost every time I do one, I'm like, I should have said this differently.
Yeah, same.
But it's always a danger when you do a podcast or something with somebody who you kind of admire, because you're like, it's just like, it makes you, not many people make me nervous.
Yeah.
But I have watched Jon Stewart forever, right? We all have. He's so funny. He's so smart. He's also an idealist.
Totally.
So he, like, in the space of like what's possible, and maybe that is the conversation we should be happening, like about what boldly. But when I did the podcast with him, I was like, afterwards, I was like, because I'm like, I'm a little bit like of a fan, and then like I want to like litigate with him. It's like, because he's still like, it should have been universal health care, and I'm for universal health care, but it should have been that when the ACA passed, and I'm like, that wouldn't have happened. But, like, I could have been more, and you're like, I don't know, I let my fangirl get in there a little.
That's a great answer.
And one last for me, you can replace Donald Trump with one Fox News anchor. Who is it?
Oh man, I think either Steve Ducey or Brett Baer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Steve Ducey, 2028. You heard it here first
I
from
don't
Jen
know.
Psaki.
They seem like the least likely to like start a war. Like I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe there are others.
Well, we'll see. Jen, thank you for.
Dana, he could be president.
She's
I
a
think
sleeper.
Dana Marino president.
She's a sleeper.
Sorry, I just like update my answer.
Yeah.
That's a great answer.
Jen Psaki, thank you for joining. Nobody knows anything.
Yeah,
now
this
go
was
back to
awesome.
your actual television show that has actual audience.
We'll all be tuned in.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank
This
you.
was awesome. Thanks so much.
Trump's AI 180.
That Jen Psaki.
She's good, man.
She's good.
Someone
She
should give her a show.
She should have a show, or maybe be a press secretary of some kind of sort.
That's the only problem with having guests on is it always underscores how bad we are at this.
Oh, I think we're getting better every day.
We're no Jen Psaki.
Every day, whatever. Saki bomb. All right. Well, an interesting week in AI policy.
You were in the dungeon.
I was in the dungeon. I was
the
in
lion's
the
den.
lion's
That's what they
den.
say.
I was
I
in
know there's
jail.
a saying here.
I was in Alcatraz
You were
as
in
it was being
You
rebuilt.
were outside it.
I was outside of it. No, an interesting week for AI policy. Again, we talk about this because I am incredibly interested in this topic, and it is super important. It is also like consequential for like how the world is going to go. So we should probably talk about it. So first of all, Donald Trump famously has sort of been like all gas, no brakes. That is like the Trumpian policy.
I mean, didn't they roll out Project Stargate like day one of his presidency? He obviously had, a lot of the tech bros behind him at the inauguration. So it really has been like all brakes, no gas.
All gas, no brakes.
All brakes, no gas. He's just been parked.
Yeah, exactly. But, and this is David Sachs, the fellow podcaster of All In, where, they were pushing for basically no regulations on AI whatsoever, fighting against state regulations,
Again,
these
fighting
preemption
against
fights.
red states like Republicans trying
Ron
to
DeSantis in
strong arm
Florida.
them out of having any regulatory safeguards at all.
And then all of a sudden, Donald Trump and the Trump administration just completely flipped course over the course of this week.
This blew my mind. I think I texted this to you when this story dropped, and I just said, what?
Yeah, it is. It is pretty unbelievable. So, there's a long list of things so there's the AI accelerationists, and then there's the AI safety community. The safety community is pushing for a number of different kinds of regulations as it comes to AI, ranging from full moratoria, we have to stop, cooperation with China to coordinate and have strong international regulations and what's called pre-deployment. So it's this idea that the government or some entity should check to see that these models are aligned before they are deployed. This was resisted by the Trump administration until all of a sudden this week they were like, actually, we're doing it. They signed an executive order expanding vetting of frontier AI models and testing systems through the Department of Commerce. And then another headline from the New York Times saying they're considering vetting these models before they are released through a voluntary deal that they sort of signed with OpenAI and Microsoft and all of these folks. Some of this stuff is reviving stuff that was happening in Biden.
They mocked as like the end of, oh, you hate innovation so much. Cool. This was like part of the thing that you guys signed, right?
Cool. Yeah. And Trevor Levin, who is at Coefficient Giving, said, this is Mark Andreessen, who is one of the people who's funding a lot of the accelerationist work, said, I hope Mark Andreessen is able to safely flee the country now in case the White House does something he said would, quote, impose tyranny far beyond anything ever imagined by communists and fascists of the 20th century. Comrade Donald Trump, baby, is coming for AI safety. But it's been really interesting. Shaquille Hashim, who is a reporter on this beat on AI, took a look at all of this and said he thinks the White House is gearing up to announce mandatory pre-deployment evaluations and is encouraging companies to get in early and, totally speculative. But it really does seem like there's been a big change. The sort of speculation as to why that is one, Scott Bessent and Susie Wiles and a lot of these guys got exposure to Anthropic's Mythos model, which is sort of this model they decided not to release that has super-sized capabilities to be able to hack into systems and beat security systems and identify holes.
Right. They shared this thing with like 50 mega corporations, JP Morgan and co, in addition to the tech companies, and sort of said, this is finding, security problems with all of your systems.
Yeah. And basically everyone I've talked to inside and outside of Washington who has gotten the demo from Anthropic, which I have not, says, holy shit. I mean, this thing is crazy. It is really dangerous. And you can see that it sort of put the fear of God into folks like Scott Bessent and Susie Wiles and Kevin Hassett. Bessent literally on Maria Bartiromo, of all places, saying, what we've had in the past month was a step change in the power of one large language model, but we're going to see it from others. Imagine if China or some non-state actor were ahead of us. We're determined to work with our AI companies to allow them to innovate, but our charge in the government is maintaining safety, and there's a very important calculus between innovation and safety. And the White House sort of saying they want kind of an FDA-style regulation of AI, which is, again, crazy from where they were before.
Yeah, it is just a night and day reversal. Like the stuff that they are calling for now, and like I co-founded this company, this nonprofit, Accountable Tech, back in 2020, and like, our whole thing was holding these companies accountable. And when the AI moment started happening, like, this is the kind of shit that we were calling for, being like, hey, obviously this is like there's major safety issues here. There's so many like risks that you can see across society, and like, but these were like the AI critics being like, we should have pre-deployment testing and stuff like that. Those were kind of like the big asks that we were like thought were totally unrealistic. And so to go from like this position that they had been in, which is like AI can do no wrong, tech is, big tech is the greatest, like Sam, be free and do what you will to this to society, to like all of a sudden being like, we need an FDA for AI. It's just kind of a crazy reversal. Like, I get it. Like Mythos, it seems like has legitimately terrified people about like the possibilities here. Yeah. And the worst case scenarios. The doomers kind of have been saying this all along, but I guess people didn't believe them. But yeah, I mean, is David Sachs like out of the conversation now? Like what do you think?
So my understanding is Susie's kind of in charge on this and is sort of dog walking David Sachs a little bit. He's gotten pushed out. That is just what my little speculation and what I've heard. She had this sort of vague tweet last night. When it comes to AI and cybersecurity, President Trump and his administration are not in the business of picking winners and losers. The administration has one goal: ensure the best and safest tech. And she kind of is a Rorschach test. I mean, she's sort of, if you want to hear we're not going to do the FDA, great. If you want to hear we are, great. And, you could see sort of the AI guys lifting this statement, which tells you they wanted her to tweet it to like, please be nice to us. And so it does tell you there's a real divide inside the Trump administration. And I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix of they have seen God in terms of, oh my God, this is what these labs are able to do. But I also think the politics are really bad. 19% chance on Polymarket that the federal review of AI models, Trump orders federal review by May 31st, which is lower than it was and higher than it was over the course of the preceding 24 hours. You do have to look at this, but it does also raise the question of leading the future. So, the political ramifications of this is the AI industry, the accelerationists put together these super PACs leading the future, and then the Innovation Council Action, which is David Sachs aligned, straight up partisan, pro-Trump. What are these guys going to do if Trump is now sort of saying, oh, we need federal regulations and pre-deployment? Where does that go? Tells you, one, they fucked up the politics, but also two, like they have materially cost their side. And I think that the other thing is, if Trump ekes out sort of a safety lane, Democrats obviously are going to want this kind of thing. I mean, you have Bernie who's going full moratoria. This is like where it's going. But the thing that's interesting is there's the safety politics of regulation of the risk. But then there's the economic politics, which is where it's going to be, that is the explosive shit, because that's where voters actually care. Right. And they're anxious right now, right? You look at the polling, it is the fastest growing issue in terms of salience in the country. It is, continuously voters are telling us they are skeptical of data centers, but not just because they're skeptical of data centers on the merits, like they are skeptical of literally AI.
I thought that specific data point that you showed me about how they're way more resistant to the same data centers being built for AI than they would be if it was just servicing searches and stuff. And that really does tell you, it's not just a NIMBY thing.
It's not a NIMBY thing. Republicans can't own this zone. The policies that people want are universal health care. And when in response, like this is not me just being like a lip, in response to questions about AI, they say universal healthcare, benefit portability, They want job guarantees. They want taxes and dividends and benefits that come from the wealth of these companies. And they want to dismantle the concentration of wealth that is coming because of this. It is an explosive issue. Republicans can't own that zone. And so it does once again put Democrats in this position where you got to get your shit together because now you singularly own this. And so I think the Republicans are a little bit jammed on this.
I totally agree. And I'll be interested to see how Sam Altman and co play it too, because again, they've kind of been out there pushing some of those ideas too. Maybe not all of maybe they don't want taxes and dividends coming out of their wealth, but like, they're talking about 32-hour work weeks and like, really bold. And I think that that's great in a vacuum. And then they, lobby against even the lightest touch AI regulation when push comes to shove. But like, that push is going to come to shove if Trump is the one being like, actually, we need robust AI safety regulations, and you can't put out a model without running it by Emil Michael first or whatever the case may be. So what do they do here?
It is the real question, because part of the risk of this, and I think why, if you are an AI safety person, you should be given some pause, is who is reviewing this, right? And it gives a person in power a lot more control over what these models ought to do and what they ought to say. And you see this in conservative circles. They're concerned about anti-conservative bias in the models, as they sort of have been woke AI or whatever.
Right. Will our Lord Emperor be too woke while they are condemning human existence?
Exactly. And so there are real questions about this. How much power do you want in the hands? And who, by the way, if you have this working group that Trump is trying to put together on what a pre-deployment situation might look like, okay, well, if it's Chris Lehane, who is the political guy at OpenAI, and, Satya Nadella, who is the CEO of Microsoft, and it's just, tech executives,
right,
and the Trump administration, that could be quite bad. And if it isn't inclusive of people who are actually thinking about the legislation from a unaffiliated, nonprofit motivated, here's what a catastrophic risk could look like, I do think that is worrisome.
Right, and that's one of the things that's interesting here. Like there are a lot of progressives that have been clamoring, like begging for this kind of regulatory oversight and with a heavier hand, and yet I'm not so sure that we want the heavy hand to be, whoever Trump, Rick Grinnell, or whoever Trump will put in charge of, testing these things. So. But I do think like there's been this conversation on the back burner. I'm sure you heard it back when you were in San Francisco, but like this question of like, this stuff is getting so much better so fast. And like when you think about nuclear as the closest, it's not 1-to-1, but it's kind of like nuclear energy is kind of like the closest parallel here historically. And it's like, we wouldn't have just let a bunch of like billionaire, CEO-led companies like just do whatever they want with nuclear weapons. It's like there's this question of, is this shit going to be nationalized? And I think yes. Like I just don't think you can make if Mythos is as all powerful as they're talking about, and identifying these vulnerabilities in like everything that all of the code that all of the most important programs in the world run on, like at some point, like it's going to be nationalized. And so again, it's an uncomfortable question because like people like us think there need to be much stronger AI regulatory bodies in place. And also I don't necessarily want like Donald Trump with Mythos at, I don't know if he would know how to use his computer with his stubby little fingers, but like, you know what I mean? Like, do we want the greatest technology in the history of the world, like under the direct thumb of Donald Trump? Trump
is faxing his prompts to his assistants.
This is a man who doesn't even use email. So like, I don't think he's going to be pulling the strings. I'll throw up here real quick, just to pat myself on the back. This is from 2023. Again, I think it's just very funny that I was at Accountable Tech and I wrote this platform for AI governance, the Zero Trust AI governance. We're talking about a useful corollary being the FDA. And on the next slide here, I'm like, we go through the whole FDA process. I say, this is not necessarily a call for a new FDA for AI, nor is the regime a one-to-one prescription for AI governance, which must be faster moving and more elastic, but it's a helpful guidepost. Large-scale AI models and automated decision systems should be similarly subject to a strong set of pre-deployment requirements. And as I've always said, Donald Trump delivers. He's a great man. No, but it is
Mr. Trump.
It's just like so crazy because the first 18 months of his presidency have been like AI, no breaks, do whatever you want. And now they're like, actually, maybe let's embrace like all of the most anti-tech things that were being proposed 3 years ago by people who were warning that this could be existential. So way to go, me. Good job.
Congratulations.
Everyone loves it.
White House AI czar,
You're
Jesse
welcome.
Larrick.
Yeah, exactly. Me and David Sachs.
David
just
Sachs.
duking it out.
War in Iran.
Oh man, from one existential risk to a maybe slightly less existential one, the war in Iran still very much happening, or Iran again, off again, as I call it. There's been a lot of like, there's almost a deal, there's no deal. There's kind of a deal, there's no deal.
Yeah.
And that is very much happening again. Yesterday, Barak Ravid reporting for Axios that they were closing in on a one-page memo to end the war, which you gotta love that. A one-page memo to end the war. If you can't write it on a postcard, we don't want to end the war.
It was done by Claude.
Actually,
sorry, done by ChatGPT.
Definitely
Whoa.
Yeah, the woke Iran deal. That Iran deal was so gay.
Yeah.
We had to get. But so, anyways, it's very unclear to me if they're actually closing in on a deal here. Iran reviewed the proposal. They've got one spokesperson for the parliament saying it was more of an American wish list than a reality, and then Speaker Ghalibaf tweeting, Operation Trust Me Bro failed. And then just a bunch of breaking news happening. The Wall Street Journal reporting that the U.S. may resume Project Freedom in the Strait of Hormuz. In case you missed it, that was a very short-lived one-day thing where they were going to help escort a bunch of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, which then promptly had to be rolled back because they hadn't cleared it with Saudi Arabia or our other allies in the Gulf.
Whoops.
So we called it off after Marco Rubio sold the hell out of it for an hour. And then apparently maybe it's back on. Saudi Arabia and Kuwait have lifted restrictions on the airspace and bases that we would need to make it happen. But there's still a lot of questions if these tankers still have to decide, do I want to go through the Strait of Hormuz right now? And it seems like a lot of them are deciding no.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Iran imposing new rules on the strait to try to secure the gains that they've extracted. So they very much have a lot of cards to play, and they are playing them.
Yeah, they are.
And then I just again, I'm not trying to, I would love to have good news to report here. That's, Donald Trump is doing a lot of great things.
Mr. Trump, you're so beautiful and strong.
Seems like there's a new deal that's going to be even stronger, but some additional brand new reporting. The Washington Post today scoops that U.S. intelligence says Iran can outlast Trump's Hormuz blockade for months. Iran retains about 75% of its pre-war inventories of mobile launchers and 70% of its pre-war stockpiles of missiles. And this is a confidential CIA analysis. Again, they've been saying that they're days away from collapse here. Two new polls coming out this week. The first one, Washington Post, ABC. These are both kind of gold standard polls. Washington Post finding the Iran war is already at Vietnam level disapproval, which is not where you want to be, famously.
Again, bro,
we just started it.
We just started
People are usually super on board at the beginning. It's only once they realize that we've lied to them about everything that they're not on board. So you're starting basically from Vietnam levels, and who knows, this could go on for months. 6 in 10 Americans say using a military force against Iran was a mistake. And you can see these, we're talking about 20% of Republicans are saying this now. Most say the U.S. military action against Iran increases the risk of terrorism, recession, and weakens relationships with allies. Again, all these are 60 to 25, 60 to 30. And meanwhile, over 4 in 10 Americans have cut back on driving and household expenses because of high gas prices.
Trump, one of the great advocates for our walkable cities.
Exactly. Good news, though. Boom times for the oil companies.
Congratulations to Shell. At least someone's having a good time.
Exactly.
2026 check-in.
And then we've got NPR Marist. Trump's approval rating hits an all-time low amid Iran war, high gas prices. More than 80% of Americans say pain at the pump is starting to strain their household budgets, and a striking majority blames the president, according to the latest NBC PBS Marist poll. The poll found that Trump's at his lowest ever point of popularity, major declines with key demographics since being sworn in. The economy isn't working for people, and increasingly unpopular war. Those challenges have given Democrats a distinct advantage in the midterms. When asked which party candidates they would vote for in the congressional elections if they took place today, Dems led by 10 points.
Love it.
Worst poll ever. 51% strongly disapprove, and everyone blames Trump for the gas prices. 63 to 37% margins. Again, a third of Republicans just explicitly blaming Trump for straining their wallets here. Look at these swings in key groups. White evangelicals down 21 points. Rural adults down 22. I'm not going to tick through all of them, but it's just kind of stunning to see the erosion of both core base groups for Trump and kind of those swing groups that we lost, that he peeled away a lot of, young people and Latinos and black voters.
A universal. universal stampede.
Brutal 10-point lead for Dems. And now this is what I'm super interested to see. Do Republicans start to peel off, especially as we get through the primaries here? Because it's just not sustainable. If you're running, so now we got Tom Barrett, a freshman rep in a swing district, introducing legislation to formally wind down the war, which Trump, by the way, has claimed is over because he needed to for legal purposes. Tom Barrett, indication of growing uneasiness among Republicans on Capitol Hill about the war, the New York Times writes. Super interesting to see some actual bucking of Trump on this stuff from Republicans, because it's usually a lot of like, the polls are bad and Republicans are quiet.
Yep. And they're like, hey, maybe we, hey,
you're the strongest leader ever.
You're so beautiful and so in shape.
And then they like point to, talk about this thing. You know, please stop doing this. And Kalshi now putting it 80-20 that Dems win the House, despite Republican inroads on redistricting that we won't get into today. Sure, we'll return to that in the Senate. Still, Republicans have a slight advantage there. Politico reporting that with Indiana, Trump asserts his grip on the GOP. In case you haven't seen, Trump flexed his grip on the GOP base in Indiana on Tuesday, vanquishing a majority of the Republican state senators who had dared to cross him on redistricting. It was a show of force in the first years, in the year's first major test of Trump's power over the Republican Party. Fox News very happy with the Indiana performance and all the victories. Revenge, thumbs up. Everyone's yada yada yada. I mean, what do you think? Is this as unequivocal a domination of the Republican base as is being portrayed?
Trump still has real issues. I mean, not being able to sort of like the revolt that is happening that has him on his defense in Texas. We were just talking about the sort of slight and subtle bucking that he's receiving on the war. Like, I don't overread this as Trump has solved all of his problems with his internal coalition. I do think it does speak to MAGA voters are pissed and are going to show up on this particular issue and, are punishing folks. But that the thing even happened in the first place is to me an indication that Donald Trump is not
I thought that was
all powerful.
We had Liam Donovan, the Republican operative, on the other week, and I thought that was an interesting point that he was like, I'm less interested, and I personally would still like to see how the Massey primary plays out, but he was like, the fact that these things are happening at all, whether they win or lose, is an indication of slight weakening of the vice grip that he's had over the Republican Party. But I mean, both things can be true, right? Like, if you have 2/3 of the base still as like diehard Trump voters, that is scary for anyone that would want to buck him while primary season is still happening. At the same time, 2/3 of the Trump base is like 30% of America, and that's not enough to win contested elections,
No, it sure is not.
We live in hell.
Okay, well, we finished the show on an uplifting note.
Well,
which is that we live in hell. And the latest example of us living in hell is the Hantavirus story. First of all, I ended up on Hantatalk, which is being owned by Aaron Parnas, by the way, who is like the leading...
He's everywhere.
But, kind of a wild story. Speaking of cruise ships, apparently some passengers were exposed to a killer human-to-human transmission strain of Hantavirus. No one quite knows how, although South African authorities said they identified the strain, which may be passed from person to person, to Argentine officials. Investigating the origins of the outbreak said the government's leading hypothesis that a Dutch couple contracted the virus while bird watching. They said they visited a landfill during the tour and may have been exposed to rodents. What the fuck? Why were you at the landfill?
Who tours the landfill?
If someone was like, hey, I really want to go see birds, do you want to stand in a pile of rat shit? I'd be like, probably not. No, actually.
The good thing about the Hantavirus is, sure, there might be person-to-person transmission, but we've closed the border and nobody would ever want to come to this godforsaken hellhole anymore. You can't afford anything. So, we should be fine. It's like we're like in one of those little islands. We're like New Zealand now. Remember, there were like no cases. I was like, if we could put like a 4x4 wall around the country.
No shit. Pandemic experts saying the odds of widespread are low, but Polymarket, you can bet. You want to talk about living in hell? You can bet on whether or not there will be a hantavirus pandemic, which they are saying the experts at Polymarket are saying only 14% chance.
I have to say, I am glad that this shit was not on my radar during coronavirus.
Oh my God.
Because I would have been like betting like $8,000 on like, will Eric Topol, the epidemiologist, tweet again about deaths, and like will Gavin Newsom lift the mask ban by September 1st? There's nothing else to do.
Yeah, you would have lost all your money.
Outside. There was an entire month where I did not go outside because it was February in Chicago. And I was very, being a good lib. But I got to tell you, I'm not masking on. I'm done. Like, freedom. No more mass tyranny.
Wow, you're full RFK.
I just don't think I can
Hantavirus.
handle it. I went off the deep end. I was like 300 pounds. I hadn't been outside in a month. I'm like, I lost my social skills, which I still haven't recovered, arguably, or else this would be a successful show. But like, I just can't do it again, man.
Yeah.
I can't do it again.
No, I'm not rooting for that.
I don't want to be at the beach with a fucking hazmat suit on.
But how depressing is it that you can bet on this stuff? I imagine there's like 6 rats on a boat who are like placing
I can't wait for like
insider bets.
I can't wait for the insider trading. It's like the goddamn Wuhan guys are all fucking insider trading the shit out of this. Fauci again.
Once again, Anthony Fauci and his corrupt dealings. Well, anyway, on that uplifting note, it was great to be back in studio with you, Jesse.
We're back in studio. We got internet. We're talking face to face. Things are looking up for us, other than everything that we just talked about.
Other than
the Democratic 2028 race and the Hantavirus and
catastrophic AI risk.
Yeah, existential doom. But other than that.
And this is why you come to Nobody Knows Anything, for our uplifting views on the Democratic primary process. Thanks again to Jen Psaki for being on the show. We'll be back on Sunday night for Nobody Knows Anything. I'm Rob Flaherty.
I'm Jesse Larrick.
And we'll see you next time.
Catch you on Sunday.
Nobody knows anything.